of how actually you would use the light, even if you are using recessed lights, down lights, like in this case. This drawings illustrates quite eloquently how that is done. You have these lighting, and you can see this is the cone of light. It casts a light. As light comes from one light source, it actually opens. It has its own angle, and when you're picking up a piece of lighting, usually the angle of the cone of light is usually written in the material and the specifications of the light fixture, which is a good thing to look at. And like in this case, the designer wanted to put really a focus on the table, the food on the table, and the decorative piece that is in the center of the table. Of course, you can use this lighting system technique and properties not only for the dining, but for anything that you would like people to focus on and highlight them. So you would use light that goes straight to that part. And that light can be in the form of directional light, just as well as it could be pendants falling straight onto that. Now we do have, after the dining, the living, the dining, the kitchen is the next piece. And kitchens are becoming more and more similar to the dining area, magnets of the house. People would celebrate actually kitchens. Friends come to the house, and then they would all, and friends are more and more getting into kind of informal gatherings in the house with friends, with the houses. Everybody will put hand on what they are basically to eat, so they participate in the cooking. The reason why you see more and more island kitchens, which have become and are becoming the center of the house to a certain point. They're becoming the new magnet inside the house. So if we were to speak of some of the socializing spaces which also require lighting that goes in that direction, we would be looking at the living room, the dining room, and more the kitchen. For example, in this case, it is a kitchen, very minimalistic, and it happens to be one of my designs, as a matter of fact. They wanted something that is very simple, but having a clear statement with this piece of the strip of light that is right here, somehow creating a symbolic separation between the kitchen and the dining, which is just next to it. And having used this wall as a piece of separation, but also a piece of that is bridging the two spaces, the choice of this layer of lighting, the downlight here, and this wall to get the reflection of the lights. As you can see, the bulbs we have here, that this light downlighting are casting their light over to this part to create a bit of more drama and connection between the dining and the dining in the kitchen and the living room that is way off. Indeed, if I was to quickly run back, this is the living room that connects actually to this dining, this kitchen, whose right side is actually occupied by the dining room. And after the dining room, we move into the bedroom. So bedrooms, what are they? Bedrooms are private spaces. They're further down. The house in itself is a closed space, is a private space, but it belongs to an entire family. And inside the house, you have further divisions. Bedrooms are even more private and more intimate spaces in the house. So they are private sanctuaries in the house. They are places for relaxing and getting rest. Therefore, the lighting doesn't have to be bright like in the living room, but somehow you would have to do some tasks in the bedroom. Sometimes people study in the bedroom, read books in the bedroom, spend a lot of time in the bedroom. It depends on individuals, and for that purpose, you need to have a couple of layers of lighting. In this case, we have the example I showed you in my first explanation about the cove light. We have an example here of the cove light that washes the wall on this side. And then we have a much bigger cove light, which also washes the wall, and that lighting returns back down. And the choice of material was extremely important too. This is again one of the pieces that I designed. I have a wall that is having a bit of reflection, and the point is to collect this natural light over here in the window as it penetrates the house. It's reflected over here and brighten part of the wall to create also a bit of drama in the house. And then you would notice that wherever you have down lighting, the ceiling is darker. That's because the light comes off the ceiling. It does not brighten the ceiling. So if you are particularly concerned about this, one thing you can do as a technique is to use sconces. If you put a bracket here and a bracket there, which is directed to the ceiling, you will have a brighter ceiling. But in this case, as a designer, I did not intend to have that. I wanted a darker ceiling rather because it can be really restful. We're going to move on to the next slide. After the bedroom, the next space in the sequence is a bathroom. This is another example of a bedroom. In this bedroom, the approach is completely different from the other one. We have used here the wall as a base to create lighting. So you have lighting that is coming off, is coming out of the wall. And in this wall, these are very functional items. These niches, they take care of decoration, but they have their own concealed or cove lights in them. And the back of these walls, I mean, the holes here are in a color, in bright color that reflects the lighting that goes on, so that you create a glow of light coming off the walls, transforming then the wall into a kind of a device that is emitting light, not only receiving light. So it receives a bit of light that comes from the cove light here, and we have down light. So again here in this case, we have a combination of cove light, down lights, and lights coming out of the walls. And then after the bedroom, so the next step is the bathroom. Let's go to the bathroom. This is an example of the bathroom that is featuring lights on both sides of the mirror. This is a very good technique to remember and to use to make more comfortable the user of the bathroom. Having lights coming on the sides of the mirror. I have seen people making mistakes having lights that are reflected into the mirror. Is the worst thing you want to do. Best design is you have lights on the sides of the mirror, because this light that comes off the wall would go to the face of the person in front of the mirror, and make the people look better. They can look at details of their own faces and what they want to do on the face. It's a place to do makeup and so on. And women are very sensitive to this thing. But these two pieces will not be necessarily enough. You would need a third part of lighting that comes from the ceiling. So you have left and right side lighting that falls on the individual, and then you have the light that comes from above. In that way, you suppress any possibilities of shadows on the face of the person that is looking into the mirror, getting ready for something. And I chose this picture to show what can be a bad side of mirrors, if you will. When you use a mirror, you got to make sure that you pay attention to what comes on the side, on the other walls in a bathroom, because they may be reflected into the mirror, and it would not always be pleasant. For example, here we have these glass boxes. The glass box here would reflect on the mirror, as you can see, and it's not pleasant to look at necessarily. So if you are to pick up an example, then you better choose an example where this side of the mirror of the wall has, for example, a painting, or it's just a plain wall, so that when it reflects in the mirror, it does not disturb, especially when you are in front of the mirror. You want to have better stuff on the side. And this drawing illustrates that quite well. And one good detail here is the fact that you have a sconce here, you have a bracket here that goes to the ceiling, brings the light to the ceiling, and the light goes over to that ceiling, and it would come down this way. So you have this person is completely, the person in front of the mirror here would be completely immersed into light from all sides in a bed in the bathroom. Quite a good example of lighting in the bathroom. Let's go to the next slide, which is still presenting a bathroom. And in this case, I want you to pay attention to a few details. Now, we have the mirrors, and we do have downlights instead of, in the previous slides, we had two tube lights, fluorescent lights on both sides, and we had two tube lights on both sides of the mirror. In the next slides, instead of having two tubes, we're having two downlights aiming at the same thing. You have lights coming from the left and the right side. And we have another piece of light. Instead of having a light right here in the middle, we have no light, but then there's light on the worktop, on the